Rick Bayless, like a number of young American chefs, achieved national recognition with triangulation by opening multiple restaurants and publishing a cookbook. In 1995, he won the prestigious Chef of the Year award from the Beard Society. From his Frontera Grill, here are corn tamales.
Making fresh corn tamales is always a very special thing in Mexico and all through the Southwest, because when that first harvest of the fresh corn comes out, when the kernels are still really moist and they haven't begun to dry, that's when everyone wants to make the fresh corn tamales. Now in Mexico, that would be done with field corn, but here in the United States we have the sweet corn to work with, which isn't nearly as starchy. But you would treat them both the same way when you were starting out the preparations here, and that would be to cut the base right basically where the cob starts and start peeling off some of these outer husks, because we could use these actually to wrap the tamales a little later on in this process of making fresh corn tamales. And once these have been taken off, you can see that if they're not coming off really easily, maybe we haven't made our cut quite at the right spot, so we can tear off the last bit here. And we're going to try to get all of the corn silk with it, as much of it as possible, and just leave that lying right there. Clean off as much silk. We don't want that to get into the finished tamales. And then cut, standing it up like this, cut the kernels right off the cob. And this is going to form the base of our mixture that we make these out of. It's not everything that goes in, and in fact, since we're making these with sweet corn, I follow a tradition that I discovered in southern Mexico a great number of years ago about making the sweet corn tamales, that if your corn doesn't have quite enough starch in it, and the sweet corn never will, that we would make this dish with half sweet corn. I've got the kernels cut from 2 cobs here. We would make it with half sweet corn that's been ground, and I'll show you. That doesn't take very long in the food processor. Just get a coarse puree going out of that sweet corn, and then the other half of the mixture is going to be masa. Now this is masa that made from the field corn, but once it's been dried and then cooked with slaked lime and then ground through stone grinders, this is the same mixture, the same dough that's used for making corn tortillas, except in this case it's just a little bit coarser ground than what would be used for making the tortillas. It's a special kind of masa, they call this mixture, masa for tamales. So we're going to mix that in with the fresh corn, but the rest of the ingredients are butter and a really rich flavored pork lard that we buy from a local Mexican grocer. Now if you don't want to use that, it's not absolutely necessary for the sweet corn tamales as it is for the other savory tamales. You could use Crisco or some sort of vegetable shortening, or just an additional amount of butter in the same proportion. And then I have 3 ingredients mixed together. It's a small amount of baking powder, salt, and sugar, and that will go in with the remainder of those ingredients. And we're going to turn this on, and it needs to puree or mix, or I'm pulsing it just to get it started, get an even mixture going here. But it needs to now go for about a minute.
The mixture will be cooked in a banana leaf which the chef warms over an open flame.
And now it's time to prepare the leaves that we're going to wrap these in before we put them into the steamer. Now I said you could use the fresh corn husks for this. These would need to be lightly blanched if you find that they're curling up on you like these are. But I thought it'd be fun to show the use of the banana leaves, because those are used extensively in southern Mexico and all along that east coast, Veracruz, and down into Tabasco and Chiapas. And I'm putting these over a flame. You could also steam them if working over the open flame is not your thing. But I'm just lightly toasting it, and you'll notice a real change in the color of the leaf as all of the oils come to the surface, and it makes the leaf much, much, much more pliable. Now, these leaves are usually purchased in frozen state in the United States, most of them coming from the Philippines, but you can also find them occasionally fresh. Those have to be cooked for sure. Steaming them, maybe 20 minutes will be enough time to soften them up the same way. Now, these can be filled or done solo, as we're doing today, without a filling. Meat filling is typical shredded pork cooked with a little of the smoky chipotle chilies. Put a little bit of it in the center of your banana leaf. Fold it over one side, fold it over the other, and then top and bottom. Now, they could go into your steamer just like that, or to ensure that they're not going to come apart, they can be flipped around and tied up with a string like a package.
The tamales are steamed in a single layer.
Plate, a small plate, and you could also do this for a grand buffet style too. It makes a beautiful presentation with these exotic banana leaves and so forth. You can see how they have come away from, they're not sticking at all to the leaf. That's the first indication that they're done. They take about an hour in the steamer, and you can see I'm just kind of rolling and folding those leaves up around the base and serve them right in that packet. People are always asking if that's something that's to be eaten or not, and it is not. It's just their wrapper that they come steamed in. And there's several different toppings you could put. Your favorite salsa could go on there, as I'm doing here, a little dollop of this homemade sour cream. And I always like to do something that's fresh on them as well. Some sprigs of cilantro or a little bit of chopped raw onion, white onion, tangy, strong white onion is always a nice accompaniment too. And they have a slightly sweet taste, and they have a real elemental earthiness about them that I think goes very nicely balanced with that creaminess, that slightly soured cream, and the fresh cilantro.